Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 6th of July, 2022. These are the stories that we'll be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll begin with the monsoon rains that have come a bit before time in Pakistan and have created havoc in different parts of the country. 77 deaths have been reported from across the country as we speak. 39 of them are from Balochistan alone. Balochistan is in a rather bad state due to the monsoon rains and the destruction that it has caused, whether it be to life or to property. Also in Sindh, there have been rains and other parts of the country. Islamabad has also expecting rains, and these rains are going to continue for the next couple of days. We are going to discuss about the different angles to these monsoon rains, what needs to be done by the people, why are these monsoon rains coming earlier than expected, and how long are they expected to remain in Pakistan. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns China and the United States of America, two countries that apparently did not see eye to eye as far as talks are concerned since some time. Nevertheless, in the recent days, there have been contacts between the hierarchy of both the Chinese and the American sides. There has been a talk on a video call between Chinese Vice Premier Liu He and US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, and there's also talks of a meeting between Anthony Blinken and his Chinese counterpart very soon. This on the sidelines of what is happening around the world, whether it be in the form of food crisis or commodities or the Ukraine war. The whole world is engulfed in many crises because of this. Now, to discuss that, the two important countries are coming together finally to carve out some kind of a future setup and solution. This is going to be our second story. Let's come with our first segment, and that concerns the rains that have come to Pakistan more earlier, kind of earlier than expected, and have caused havoc across the country. They always do every year, and this year 77 deaths have so far been reported across Pakistan. 39 deaths have been reported from Balochistan alone. There has been a lot of destruction as far as property as well from Balochistan. A lot of reports have come from Quetta and suburbs as well. We've been joined by Abdullah Khan Sahab. He's an environmentalist. Abdullah Khan Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Abdullah Sahab, when it comes to these rains, do you feel that they have come earlier? Because this is what a lot of people are saying, and if so, what are the reasons?
Thank you for having me. They certainly, they came earlier, and it was the studies on because of the climate change and increasing world temperature. It was expected that in coming years, even this shifting of monsoons to the earlier every year is going to happen. Moreover, because we know that this global warming is associated with the greenhouse emissions in last 100 years. There's a increase in concentration of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and there's a consistent kind of there's a consensus on that this is anthropogenic due to the anthropogenic activities, and we're seeing this is happening now in the form of these extreme weather events, and because we are in the region that is very vulnerable, and we frequently see this is happening on a regular basis now.
When it comes to the effects of rains in Pakistan, why are there always deaths in different areas of Pakistan? Why can't the government or the administration in different areas, because this is happening every year, why can't a proper solution be carved out so that minimum damage to life and property happens when these rains do occur every year?
That's the obviously the capacity that being a fifth most populous country we are, and we see the frequency of these floods and rains, extreme weather events particularly due to climate events. We have seen this year, earlier the heat waves in March, and then this spell of rains much earlier than expected. It is normally these rains are in the end of the July or early August, but we see that this is happening. We know that, and it is known to us that we in next 100 years we're going to see the frequency of these events even harsher than the events that we see today. building, capacity building, building the infrastructure, water harvesting, in the form of the small dams, and urbanization, rapid urbanization. That is, and we not, our cities are not plain as they should. So these problems are compounded with the, enormous kind of population budge that we be facing, is the reason, I think. And obviously we have others, apart from, building infrastructure, although they are very important. If I just say that, for example, if we invest in, climate related, to minimize this impact, we can save billions of dollars. For instance, there's an estimate that 1.8 billion dollars we have, has this climate related events that costed us to our economy. But, as we know, we are going to the IMF for $1 billion. But the thing is, these events are, we cannot, divert that much amount of investment towards this climatic events, and, climates at the at small span of time. So, I think there are the good things happening. For instance, the Balochistan, where we see the, recent climatic events that is hit very badly by these rains. They're out of, government of Pakistan's 100 small dams project, out of which are 60 are now built. So they're going to be, but the enormous, but the thing is, the severity of these events, and the intensity of these events, and the, spatial kind of, geographical location of this country, and the impact of the climate change. I think this is the reason. Although, there are the serious efforts there. I mean, in terms, I'm saying serious effort in terms because governments, considering the, kind of socio-economic, or how much, in terms of economical resources that we have, we can divert to the climate related, building climate related infrastructure. So, yeah, that's the
All
that's
right.
the
Abdullah Saab, how important is the responsibility and the functionality of the National Disaster Management Authority in times like these?
I mean, this is. I mean, we need to have the early warning system in place, all emergency kind of setups in place and ready for that. But, that can be done. All those, early warnings been issued. Met offices were, telling us in 1 month earlier that this monsoon is going to be very intense. So warning system, is very fairly there. But the, capacity, again, the state's capacity and resources that we have, and also we see, as I said, the severity of the event that, every time hits us, considering the kind of resources we have, is one of the, serious capacity issue for the any management strategy or organization there. uh,
Now, yes, Abdullah, another assisting factor because of these rains is also Glof, you very well know, in Gilgit-Baltistan. There are a lot of glaciers that melt and then they slide down and they cause further havoc in those regions. And the NDMA has also warned all the authorities concerned in Gilgit-Baltistan to be very aware of such events if they happen during the current monsoon spell, because apparently this monsoon spell is going to be a very strong one. Can measures be taken to prevent the excessive results of GLOF and associated phenomena that happen in Gilgit-Baltistan? Do you feel that the governments there can devise certain measures for the people of those areas?
I mean, one could be the very short term, as I said, the early warning, so that, to minimize the damage to the livestock and human lives, and all the lives that is there. And then putting in place the measures, and then again could be the, because this, as you said, the glacial outburst of the, lakes is due to the climate change. This is which is the global phenomena. I mean, planting trees, this could be one measure. And then we also need to, in a longer term, to have the have this technology for capturing carbon from the atmosphere, direct atmosphere. These are very very high kind of technologies out there. I don't know whether we are ready for that.
All right.
But I
Abdullah,
mean,
also finally, what I want to understand is, due to climate change, due to environmental pollution, due to so many factors that combine together, heat waves and so on and so forth, the rain season or the monsoon season changes every year. Sometimes it becomes stronger, sometimes it becomes weaker. The timing of the monsoon season also changes from time to time. We're coming to Pakistan, what kind of measures do you feel that the government needs to take to I mean, now the monsoons are here and the NDMA has started to take preventive measures. But what about next year and the years after? Do you feel that the government needs to start with strategies right now once the monsoon gets over, so that next monsoon we are better prepared?
I mean, obviously, I mean that is certainly that is what is needed. If you allow me, I just want to just
Please go
try
ahead.
to okay. So you see this that we see today, these extreme events, whether this is the outburst of the glacial lakes, or whether this intensity of the monsoon. And I was looking at the data, and a paper came out in 2021 about these 100 millions years of climatic data of this region, led by the Brown University, the U.S. university. They find that this is because of the climate change. So I mean, climate change, I was saying that because of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. So the phenomena that we're seeing is we cannot really control. We cannot control the intensity of these events. But we can do it. What only we can do is to set up the infrastructure or take the measures so that we can have the minimum effect of these events on us. So government definitely need to in a short term and a very one on emergency basis could be as I said earlier, that the one is the early warning systems, and then this plantation drives, and also the emissions control. That is going to be we have to embrace that because of this European Union's we are the signatory of the European Union's Green Deal as well. We probably will talk about some other time on that.
Definitely, Abdullah Saab. We will definitely
And
talk another time. And so much to discuss as far as environment is concerned, climate change is concerned, the heat waves in Pakistan is concerned, environmental pollution is concerned, and of course these monsoon rains that are very current because of the number of deaths and destruction that has happened, especially in Balochistan area. So of course the National Disaster Management Authority is doing its level best. The Pakistan Met Department is doing its level best as well, and we wish them all the very best. The coming days are going to be tough ones for both these departments. So of course the people also need to be extremely vigilant when it comes to the rains and avoid places where there is too much accumulation of water, or if they feel that where they live, I think they need to be very careful as well. If it is the housing is at a place where they feel that there could be some kind of a flood or gulf, they need to evacuate at least for the couple of days. Thank you so very much, Abdullah Khan Sahab,
thank
environmentalist,
you.
to have
Thank
joined
you.
us and to have talked to us about this spell of monsoon rains that has come a little before time. Nevertheless, it has caused destruction, and a lot of how should I say management details have been put forward by the NDMA and by the Pakistan Met Department as well. As far as the NDMA is concerned, it has advised all the relevant departments to be extremely cautious and proactively monitor the nallas and water channels to avoid possibilities of drowning, that we have seen drowning in Balochistan as well, and of course the possibility of gulf in Gilgit-Baltistan and parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, coupled with likely rains that could cause this as well. So Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is also a province where the measures are being taken by the NDMA. The Pakistan Met Department, or the PMD, has put on an emergency number that is 16, that is 16 or 16, that has become functional. Section 144 is being imposed near the rivers and the dams during the current spell of monsoon as well. So these are of course very important measures that have been taken by the PMD as well. Do dial 16 if you feel there's any kind of emergency as far as these monsoon rains are concerned. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns the contact made between China and the United States of America under the current situation where there are a lot of crises that are that the world is seeing in general. It has become pertinent, and I think it's a very important step that both the United States of America and China have come together to discuss different important issues concerning the present state of affairs. More in the following report.
The current spike in global inflation and market meltdown depicts economic consequences of several geopolitical contests, including Ukraine conflict, and illustrates urgency of dialogue and diplomacy. Since another Cold War would not benefit anyone, China's Vice Prime Minister and U.S. Treasury Secretary held a virtual call about macroeconomics issues, according to official statements from both sides. The Chinese readout stated the importance of coordinating the two countries' macro policies and maintaining the stability of global supply chains. The statement also mentioned U.S. tariffs and sanctions on China, but not geopolitics. The U.S. readout noted general discussion of economic and financial developments in both countries and abroad, but the statement did not mention tariffs or sanctions, while noting the global economic impact of Russia's war against Ukraine. During their candid and substantive interaction, the two sides also discussed the global economic outlook amid rising commodity prices and food security challenges during the call. As the global economy faces grim challenges, there is a great significance to strengthen the communication and coordination of the macro policies between two global economic powerhouses that are China and United States. Safeguarding the stability of global industrial chains and supply chains will serve the benefits to China, the US, and the whole world.
Dr. Usman Chohan, who is a leading economist, joins us online. Usman, thank you very much to have joined us, and congratulations on the unveiling of your book very recently. Nevertheless, let's come to our topic, and that is the talks between the United States and China, whether it be Vice Premier Liu He and U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and their video call, whether it be Anthony Blinken and Wang Yi, who are to meet on the sidelines of a regional conference in Bali this week. How important are these talks as far as A, the current tensions between the two countries are concerned, B, the regional situation is concerned?
Important questions. Thank you for posing them. The reason is contact between both countries at the highest level, overtly through summits and seminars, had come down to a very, very low and minimal extent during the Trump administration, during the pandemic, when global coordination was most required. It is a good step that both sides are taking to start to do high-profile engagements that actually benefit countries like ours, because the challenges that we face in the world today require coordination from all countries, but especially these two. Like, for example, on the inflation and supply chain issue, like with macroeconomic coordination, you won't be able to do this single-handedly, and I think the United States is beginning to realize that pushing China away was not a good plan to begin with.
All right, now Joe Biden is considering lifting some tariffs as far as imports from China to try and ease this soaring inflation is concerned. Will this help?
It absolutely will help, because these sorts of protectionist measures were taken by the United States under the accusational pretext that China was engaging in unfair trade practices. This is because China has had for a very long time, I mean 25 years plus, a trade surplus and has been accumulating US dollars and has created a trade network around the world by which it accumulates surpluses that was fine when the US was aiming to integrate China into the global economy after the WTO agreement in 2001. Now the situation they felt was different. They felt that China is well on its way to surpassing the United States economically, and so giving a booster through American cooperation would ultimately, they felt, undermine their interests. And once these protectionist tariff-type measures were instated, it increased the cost of consumption and imports for the United States as well as for other countries. So when you have a supply chain crisis, you have to think a bit more pragmatically, and so the ideology pushing that protectionism, which is against the free market ideology that the United States always promotes, you have to go against that and finally recognize the pragmatic realities we face.
When you talk of pragmatic realities, Usman, and you talk about the supply chain issues that is engulfing the world, including these two important countries, do you feel both of them together can carve out some kind of a mechanism for themselves and for the world?
Absolutely. The reason is because these two countries had proactive dialogue frequently at the highest level prior to the Trump administration, and it did help to set a valuable course. And if you recall, go back to those times, the 2010s and the 2000s, things were going quite well, barring the US financial crisis, which China did fine in. Now it is very much up to China to assist America in realizing its economic stability. Why? Because its role in international trade is so central now that without China's willing and forthcoming cooperation, you won't be able to achieve it. For example, out of the world's largest ports, 7 out of the largest 10 of the world's ports in terms of trade volume are in China, including the largest one, the port of Shanghai. And because of COVID, in April, they shut all of Shanghai down, including the port, which meant just imagine the repercussions for supply chains when the largest port on earth is shut down for a month. America cannot deal with that on its own. It has to get China on board.
All right. When you say America needs to get China on board, there's also another factor on which both countries need to have some kind of consensus. That concerns the global energy prices, which are increasing with every passing day, and also because of the Russia-Ukraine war at present. Now, this and the supply chain, the food crisis, and the fact that we are hearing reports of huge quantities of wheat that are not being led to, as far as the different areas of the world are concerned. So that leads to a certain food crisis, ladies and gentlemen, and that creates an imbalance as far as not only the distribution of food and commodities and supply chains are concerned, but also leads to a dearth of food across the world and also in the developed countries, whereas the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, it doesn't seem to have any kind of an end. Nevertheless, the talks between the US and China seem to go in the right direction, and some kind of hope is emerging out of those. Usman, when it comes to global energy prices and other issues that engulf the world because of the Ukraine-Russia war, and also the food crisis, and also the fact that we are hearing reports of huge grains of wheat that are not being led to other countries because of this current war situation. Can China help? Because we know that China is not opposing Russia, and China has more friendly nature of relations with Russia. Do you feel it can somehow convince Russia? Can the US on its side work with the European Union so as to convince Ukraine? Can we maybe, let's say this as a possibility, come towards some kind of a negotiated solution?
This is difficult to comment on because things are still in flux, and I don't see a resolution to the conflict in sight, but I do hope for the best for both countries, particularly the suffering of the Ukrainian people. But China does have good relations with Russia, and China is integrated into the global economy's trade aspect like no other country, which means that it doesn't need to do any diplomacy or persuade anybody, but if it plays its role as a productive economic force that works, and it does, especially with Pakistan, then that is already a good sign for the world economy. It is actually up to the United States to stop trying to hamstring a natural economic development which is happening not just because China trades with the world, but because it's developing its internal market so effectively. A consumer base of 1 billion people, it's enormous. And so even if China doesn't play diplomacy, it still is a very important and valuable member of the international commercial system.
Where does that leave the global energy crisis? Can both countries find some solution?
It's unfortunate that right now there is a lot of competition for the energy supplies as they stand. For example, you and I consuming gas in Pakistan get it from the Gulf, and that is not where Europe would normally get it. They would get it from pipelines. But the pipelines, because of the rift between Russia and the EU, they are trying to move away from Russian gas, which means that they're bidding for the gas that usually comes to Asia. that means that the gas is going up. And because knowing this, gas has gone up very high, just like oil, which means that the third alternative, which is non-renewable, is coal. And it's very tragic for me personally to know that coal is now going to be used far more frequently when we're trying to resolve things like the global climate change.
So environmental pollution comes back with a bang.
With a bang, and coal has been, to be honest, it has been the biggest driver of China's development and many other countries, but to try to wean us off coal, you can't also have a gas problem and an oil problem, and that's why the global energy markets are a real mess right now for us here, importers of energy.
All right. Now, the U.S. Treasury Department has said that Yellen and Liu, of course, this meeting that was held between the two sides, discuss macroeconomic and financial developments in the United States as far as China, B, the global economic outlook amid rising commodity prices and food security challenges. I'd like to understand your point of view on the microeconomic and financial developments as far as the US and China are concerned. Is there any similarity of views in your point of view? And if there is a divergence, do you feel something can be done about it?
Yes, that's an excellent way to put it. There is a divergence of views, but there's a commonality of interest, because the U.S. has been a net deficit, has a current account deficit, and it's been printing dollars and exchanging that for goods produced in China, and China has then used that to invest into treasuries or to stack up on US dollars. So they have a mutual interest in maintaining some stability in the dollar and in the trade flows, you see. So the problem is now, with inflation being high, the real yield on the US Treasury is negative, which is to say that whatever the Treasury is supposed to pay in interest for its instruments, that is a negative number when you factor in how expensive things are becoming. And that's why bringing inflation down is a very good idea for bonds. Otherwise, if you have a bad global economy, which we do, and you also have high inflation, then you have no choice but to go into cash, and that is not productive. Cash just sits on itself. Instead, you want to have at least inflation come down. Even if the global economy is weak, you would be able to get a positive yield on government bonds, and the US Treasury issues those bonds, so they would be happy with that.
That is true, Usman, and let's hope that some kind of a negotiated solution comes out of this meet, and also Anthony Blinken and Wang Yi, who are going to meet on the sidelines of the regional conference in Bali this week. Let's hope for the best, and with that we come to an end of today's newsroom. Allah Hafiz.